Hello everyone. Is it the weekend yet? Don't worry, I haven't cut my hair. It's just slicked back in a disgusting fashion. Thank you for joining today. I am checking out some, I've called them parlor games, but basically we've got a chess game and two card games, and I was kind of trying to fit them into a theme, but they weren't going. So I was just like, what do you call that? Games you play with chess pieces and cards. We're checking out Sparrow Warfare, we're checking out Realtime Chess, we're checking out Cat Solitaire, and this is the last stream in this format. I'm going to continue doing streams at least once a week, but often 2 or 3 times a week, and the only difference is I'll be mixing together the games from the channel patrons and the games sent in on the Indie Game Clinic form on indiegameclinic.com. There are lots of reasons for that. I've talked about it before. The people who are in the chat right now have heard me say it before. You don't need it again. It's not that interesting. But there'll be a little bit more mixed together going forward, and that will allow me to get round to patrons games more often and make sure that they are matched up with relevant games. So one quick thing I want to tell you about before we get started is there's not going to be a big video essay in May, and that's mainly because I had extra time taken up with the game jam. The next big video essay is going to be about difficulty and what difficulty is in games, where does it come from, how do you design for it, all of those sorts of things. Those of you who are patrons, I've been discussing that with some of you on the Discord. We have a little forum where I talk about upcoming video topics and what people want out of that, and examples they'd like to hear used and stuff like that. But I'm also running a little experiment at the moment, because I don't do a lot of this kind of larger data-based stuff. So what I wanted to do is I started compiling data for this week, but I am making a record of my first impressions of every game released on Steam during May. And I started yesterday, and I've done 3 days worth. And I'm working my way back through May, and then I'm going to do the last few days of May at the end. And the idea is just for every commercially released game, so every game that comes out on Steam on a day in May, I'm recording my initial kind of subjective reactions to it in terms of how it looks, how clear the gameplay is, if I think it's value for money, how well branded it is, if the name and the logo and stuff stands out. And I'm doing that sort of on a subjective basis, but also in terms of like whether I think other people would like it, right? So when I see an anime visual novel, I don't play those, not a big fan of them, but I'm still judging it based on whether I think someone who would like those would like them. So I'm scoring them based on that on day one, and then a month later, we're going to go through and see how they all did. We're basically going to do an experiment to see how reliable my subjective judgments are on these things, which I think is a fun little experiment to do. And in doing so, we might spot some other patterns as well. So yeah, that's a thing I'm going to be doing over the next month. Those of you who are in the Discord, you can come and chat to me about that. I will be doing some Patreon posts about it as I go along. But what I'm trying to do is take my kind of intuitions and the sort of things I would advise people on and work out where they're strongest and where they're weakest. I can already sort of loosely predict that there will be genres of games that I'm better at predicting if they're going to do well than others. Like I saw already in a couple of days, I've seen loads of these desktop kind of idler toys, and I don't really have a sense of who buys those or why. So I don't feel like I'll have a good idea of how those things do. But there'll be other ones where I feel very, very close. So no, Robin, I'm not playing all of them. That's kind of the point. So I'm looking at the Steam pages, and I'm recording the genre in case I need it later, but it's not really the main point. What I'm looking at is how much have they costed it as the base price? Do I think it's value for money? So 3, these are all out of 4. 3 is like fine. 3 is just that seems right. 4 is this is a steal. They're underpricing for the quality of what they're doing. And then all of these other things are out of 4. So the art and creative is like how appealing and coherent are the art assets in general, creative direction, the music choices, any story stuff we can see. The clarity of game design is basically when I look at the screenshots and the trailer and the game description, can I actually tell what you're doing in the game? So when this is low, when it's a 1, it's like a game where you look at the page and you can't even work out what it is. And when it's a 2, it's like you know what the game is, but it seems like some stuff's missing. Like they haven't shown the upgrade screens that are implied by the genre on the Steam page and stuff like that. The branding and marketing is stuff like, does it have a memorable title? All of those kind of things. I mean, Kuna said, are you logging the tags? I've seen a few games I enjoy that have terrible tags and haven't done well. I think one of the things it might be interesting to do, although I dread the thought of going back and doing it for all of these now, is having a rating based on how well I think the tags fit the game that's being shown. Because I do frequently have that same experience of like, I look at a game and it looks okay, but the way that they've set it up in terms of tags seems totally wrong. And that kind of feels like it might be a predicate of something doing poorly. But yeah, then I've got a scoring system where we've got 4 scores out of 4, and then the lowest one is double weighted. So if the game is generally good across the board, like if you had a game that was 4 across the board, but you'd charge £99 for it, then I would put a 1 on the value for money thing, and then the 1 would get double weighted, because it's like generally a good game that's doing a silly thing in one area kind of thing. But yeah, what I'm trying to do is less a kind of Chris Zukowski type, use this data to see what you should do on Steam type thing, which is kind of what the genre tagging data is often used towards. And I'm saving the genres based on what I consider them to be, because I'm thinking about like who the game actually appeals to. So for example, I've used engine building for certain types of auto battler and like very chance-based deck builder games and stuff like that. But I don't even know if I'll use the genre tags at all. I haven't used the tags that are listed on Steam. I've just put them in a genre based on who I think would actually play it, rather than the actual tagging on Steam. Because the tagging, we know it's important, we know it can be done badly, but what I'm really interested in is using the day one, what's on the Steam page and my reaction to it, and then comparing that to how the game actually does, because that makes for like an interesting case study into subjectivity and intuition and how valuable are people's judgments about tastes. Because often I think you can make a reasonably good judgment on whether a game is going to do well, even if it's in a genre you don't understand, because you can just look at general kind of categories. So all of these scores, the way that they're set up here in terms of like what makes something a 1, a 2, or 3, or 4, I'm doing them this way. So the 3s and 4s, if something is consistently 3s or 4s across the board, that's a game that I think most people who, if they like that game, would see it and want to play it, right? It's basically, this is a game that most people who like that sort of game would think this is worth my money. And then below that threshold, we get into stuff that is basically like a hobby project that perhaps doesn't need to be on Steam. And the lower level, the reds, the 1s, is like, this is a learning project that is like something you could have done in a class that definitely doesn't need to be on a commercial platform. And then the next tier up is like, it's kind of still like that, but you're clearly putting effort into all of the places where it matters. And maybe like, you're not very good at art, or you're using assets and you're doing it in a slightly janky way that doesn't end in a good result, but I can see that you're kind of putting effort in everywhere. And then the green tier is like, the developers are putting effort in everywhere and it's mostly paying off and it's mostly appealing in some way. And this would be like, I've called it passion project level, but this would include like commercial indies where they're clearly a bit DIY and homemade. So something like Undertale would be in this green tier, right? And I ran the data on the stuff yesterday, and it ended up with about 60% of the games being in the yellow and red tier, which I think is already interesting when you think about people saying, oh, the market's saturated for games. It's like, well, you can wheel out all these scary numbers about how many games are getting released every day, But if 60% of them are in this kind of hobby tier of stuff that, you know, if the devs looked at other people's games and they saw a game of that quality, they wouldn't buy it themselves. That kind of tier of stuff. About, you know, the bottom 60% is all in there. And that's going to be the same for every platform. It's going to be the same for YouTube content. It's going to be the same for streaming. It's going to be the same for like music that's on Spotify. The more sort of democratized the making of a medium gets, the more we're going to get like commercial platforms or sharing platforms that are just kind of flooded with this end of stuff. And that's fine. And it's not to like, you know, I've tried to be kind with the language I've used here. This is kind of how you would write marking rubrics for like a course, for like a university course or something. And it's not necessarily like, oh, these games are rubbish. It's just most people will look at it and think that is a hobby project. And, you know, maybe I'll buy it if it's my friend who made it. And maybe I'll buy it if it's something I'm really interested in. And like, you know, you might buy someone's sort of janky hobby project if there aren't many games in that genre and you just really miss them, you know, in a weird alternate timeline where no one has made a platformer for 30 years and you're feeling nostalgic for them. If someone is like the one person who ever made a platformer in the last 10 years, you might buy it just out of curiosity. But, yeah. Just trying to see what that up. Yeah, Tim, that's kind of exactly what I'm getting at. It doesn't seem to take a hell of a lot to beat 80% of many games on Steam's. Where would I put something like Horsey Game along this axis? Let me look at it. I don't... See, so one of the things as well here is that so if we look at Horsey Game, I would put the aesthetics of this up in the kind of 2.53 area, because they're incredibly coherent, right? So it's not, I'm not looking at the aesthetics and making a judgment from one point of view of taste and saying like, oh, the aesthetics are only good if they're realistic, or they're only good if they show that someone is really good at a type of art. It's much more looking at how coherent they are. So one of the things I've been recording as well, I've recorded like a main aesthetic category to put things in. And one of the ones I've been recording is just called AI Forward. And so there are some games where I've noticed they've used AI, but they haven't used it everywhere. Or if they've used it everywhere, they've created a like consistent aesthetic with it. So just to give you an example, let me just... This is a fun exercise. So something like Three Kingdoms Club Manager, right? This is a game where the capsule art and a bunch of the assets in the game are clearly made with AI. But I wouldn't necessarily say that this is aesthetically an AI game, because they are trying to produce a particular type of aesthetic with it. So the type of person this appeals to in terms of how it looks is a person that likes kind of like historical anime type stuff. This is obviously like a Chinese setting because it's Three Kingdoms, but it is a kind of anime style, like Wall of Fire type appeal, right? So I've put that under anime, but then we've got other games which are like I've listed as being AI forward in their aesthetic, which is basically like a game you wouldn't play unless you were totally okay with this, you know, being so obviously AI kind of thing. So I'm logging that as well because I think that's interesting to see. But yeah, something like Horsey Game I think is a good example of one where lots of people would think it's not good in terms of how it looks, but I would still score this above a 2.5 at least, maybe above a 3, because everything is coherent and consistent. And that means that someone who likes one part of this is going to like all of the parts of it. And I think that's what I mean when I talk about this art creative dimension. Whereas if you've got something like... this is a good example of one. So I scored this a 1.5. Snowplow Therapy. This is like a simulator game about driving a snowplow. There's nothing particularly wrong with any part of what you can see in this art-wise, but it doesn't really go together. So when you watch the video, you've got like almost realistic art assets for certain things, and then low poly things for other things, and you've got these you got these particles for like actually plowing the snow, which don't really match up with other art styles. And then you've got typography where it's kind of like science fiction, you know, Michael Bay Transformers movie type typography. And then you've got like a trailer with this very placeholder aerial type text coming up at the bottom, and it just doesn't feel like there's any consistent creative direction, right? So that's the type of game that's scoring under a 2 for me, is that someone who sees one part of this and likes it is going to look at other parts of the game and not like them because they don't go together and they don't like match the same taste profile. Whereas a game like Horsey Game, it's kind of like, if you look at this screen and you go, yeah, oh, I want to play that game, I like the look of that, that's charming to me, then everything else you see on all the other screens still fits, you know? And that's, to me, what creative direction is. And that's why that category is like art direction and creative direction. It's like, does all the art go together? Does the 3D art go with the 2D art? Does the art go with the typography? Does the music go with the tone of the art? All of those kind of things. So a game like this is kind of in the top 50% for that category, because the person who likes this will like all of it, you know. And I think that's the thing that I'm looking for to base my judgments on. And that's generally how I think about these things as well when we have games on streams. It's like, does everything in this game feel like it is speaking with the same voice to the same audience? And how many of the choices just feel like cop-outs because the developer couldn't be bothered to do something or whatever? And that's when we get into the lower tier of like, you know, the developer has left loads of placeholder typography in and they haven't chosen a font and they haven't thought about the color language of their game. They haven't done all of the things that you can do to have good art direction that don't actually require you to be good at making art assets. That's when we get into the lower tier of the games that feel like hobby projects, the games that feel like learning projects. It's kind of like you look at the game and there's no sense that the developer is really showing that they care about that side of things, or showing that the game exists to be consumed with someone's eyeballs, you know. And that happens very, very often with early learning projects, because, you know, the people see the tech as the hard bit, so they focus on doing the tech, and they're like, well, if it works, it must be a good game. And it's like, people look at them. They look at them more than they press buttons, so people do care about that. Okay, let's get into today's games. Yeah, kind of, that would be really helpful, even if it's just for a passing mention. If you've got that study around somewhere, it would be really interesting to see. I think the reason why people find that stuff about aesthetics unintuitive is that a lot of the people that get into making games as hobbyists are coming from the technical side rather than the artistic side. And they're often people that only play like games with realistic aesthetics, and that's a pretty narrow slice of the pie in terms of who actually plays games. Okay, so this is Sparrow Warfare. I put this up first. Oh, I put this in the stream first because it looked like the, quite frankly, least derivative. Because we've got a solitaire and a chess game, and when I see a solitaire game, it's like, how much is this actually going to deviate from just being a plain old solitaire? Let me just get the capture window working properly, because this isn't working with screen capture. 1 second. There we go. That should do. Okay. Flight 1, start out with a helping hand. So we're doing a deck builder with birds. They're tiles, though. They're like mahjong tiles. And We're passing the first deck builder test, which is, do you start me off with a too big, confusing amount of stuff? And we don't. We've got 4 defends, we've got 4 attacks, and we've got a special thing. Because the thing about deck builders is they can, to some degree, tutorialize themselves because you deliberately give the player a simple starting deck. That means that the game is not too hard to learn at the beginning, and it also means they can actually add stuff in. I'm not sure if this is actually listed as a deck builder. I didn't check my notes beforehand. Everything looks like it goes together in terms of art style. Liking what I'm seeing so far. Hey, Ina. Hello to folks coming in on Twitch today. Okay, welcome Sparrow. Free birds by playing sets or runs. A set is 3 of the same tile. A run is 3 tiles in a row of the same suit. Hint, you could play 1, 2, and 3 of attack now. Okay. 3 of the same tile or 3 tiles in a row of the same suit. So we're doing a sort of pokery type thing with tiles. So they're going to attack for 4. We're actually fighting the other birds. So they got 7. So we're going to do a 3 and a 4 attack. Where do I click to confirm? Oh, it has to be 3. I was trying to play 3 and a 4 to get exactly 7 to KO them. Okay. So, that would be 2, 2, 3. That's not a run because 2 of them are the same. Got it. So Celeste I haven't played a lot, but we did use it as a reference for a game I'm working on currently. I think one of the things that you need to look at for Celeste in terms of how they make the styles fit together is that the line weights and the typography and everything all match each other, and they use the colors, the same color palette consistently through the elements as well. There isn't really much to it beyond that. But if you look at any kind of pixel art games that use a font like this, the weight of the font and the weight of any outlines on this kind of interface tend to be quite similar to the size of the pixels as well. You are playing the Way of Fire. To get your flame tiles, play the Way wild tile. Oh, sorry, I can see that flashing in the background. Let me just hide my display capture. Maybe that will stop it. To get your flame tiles, play your Way wild tile as part of a set or run. Okay. Keep playing your turn as long as you have tiles to play. Okay, cool. So, but there's. Am I supposed to be attacking the beekeeper? Is that what we're doing next? So I do 1, 2, 3 that way. Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a character over here. It took me a while to notice the actual dude because they're sort of slumped in the corner. Okay, I've got 15 damage incoming. I'm going to do some defense stuff. So I'm going to do a run that goes 1, 2, 3. Can I do 1, 2, 3, 4? No, you can only do sets of 3. Okay, it's always 3. And we'll do 3 4s as well. And I don't know what the flame card does on its own. Hang on, what does it say? Sets tile on fire, causing burning. Burning damage dealt at end of turn. Amount decreases by 1 each turn. Okay, so I attach that to an attack run, and it will add a damage over time. It's a bit weird, the bird theme. I don't understand why birds are setting each other on fire and stuff. It feels like a mismatch, which is a shame because I like all of the art. Who's this? What's this guy doing? Sister Claus has rewards for you. Okay. I like the art style of this. It kind of looks like the board game Wingspan, which is about birds. But the board game Wingspan is about like building habitats. It's quite abstract, but you're like building different habitats for birds and getting the food they like. This is just, they are fighting. They've got claws, they've got wings, and I don't think that's necessarily even like the best type of wildlife to make a wildlife fighting game with, because do birds typically go around beating each other up? I don't know. I don't know enough about birds. Okay, so flame is its own suit, so we can't play it as an attack. We have to do a run of flame cards. So we can do 2, 3, 4 like that. We're gonna set fire to a bird. They fight other birds. Okay. I think what they're going for, they've got like the way of fire, and then I don't know how loud the music is on the stream, but they've got this sort of, you know, Southeast Asian music. I wouldn't be able to tell you what musical tradition that comes from, but there's like there's a flute, you know. So they're doing a kind of kung fu movie magic type flying lotus thing with the birds, which is a strange mix of things, especially when we've got this beekeeper over here who's a photographic resource. I kind of like it. It's strange, but it's just on the edge of feeling intentionally funny. Yeah, I'm totally fine with someone making a Wingspan Slay the Spire mashup. But it's interesting because I feel like the way that this looks when you first see it on Steam is it's going to sort of attract a kind of old lady mahjong game contingent who's then going to be deeply confused. Opponents are shuffled into your draw pile and drawn as you draw tiles. Move through your draw pile faster by discarding tiles. Okay. Interesting. There are birds in East Asia, but do they have magical fire kung fu? That's what I'm interested in learning about. I've got loads of cards I can't use, so we're going to do a big old discard of all of these ones. Discard those. I love Lonely Lewis. Look at him. Bluff Justice. I don't think it's fair to... Like, I mean... Slay the Spire is a genre progenitor for most people, so we're going to always find a similarity. I think what it's doing with the poker runs is interesting enough to be a differentiator. You know, I don't think... You don't need to always, like, redesign the core mechanics, and if anything, that just makes the thing hard to understand. It's totally fine to use 90% of the mechanics, retheme it, and have a different mechanic. And I quite like the runs of things. It does feel a little bit strange with them being tiles, because the runs feels like a poker thing, like a Balatro thing, of like having to think about playing a 1, 2, 3 together. And these are sort of... These are designed to look like Mahjong tiles, in which case, I don't really want to be reading a number on them, I just want to look at the symbols and play them from that. We're going to do a 2, 3, and a 4, and I think we can do that twice. 365 degrees. Setting fire to birds. Watch out. That is a bird on fire. Just realised you can't see the wonderful beekeeper very well there. There you go. At the beekeeper. It's a very long tutorial level. I would say that. Much too long, in fact. I think you want to quickly get the player to a point where they've won their first match of your game. And particularly seeing as this aesthetic feels like it's trying to pull in a slightly more casual audience than a more, you know, if you were making a grimdark fantasy battler and it was a Slay the Spire with a sort of, you know, more hardcore aesthetic, I think having a longer first thing is fine, but this is way too long and way too difficult to be the tutorial. Because the tutorial needs us to onboard... A tutorial in a game should onboard you into what winning feels like as well. Okay, so these guys over here all have stuff on them. So I'm supposed to have been clicking on them and taking these things. I've been clicking none because I just wanted to go back to the game, but... So I'm supposed to have been building my deck during the actual match itself, which is an interesting dynamic. But yeah, I think I'm going to die, and I don't want to die. Yeah, Robin, this is similar to Bound Together, isn't it? The game from the Discord where you've got like a 3D animated character and then they've tried to do like still enemies. It just really kind of draws attention to it in a way that makes it feel a bit painful. Click on the follower bird. Yeah, I'm gonna... Okay, we're gonna do it again, and this time we're gonna click on the follower birds. Okay. Yeah, the theming feels strange. I'm totally on board with the theming being not necessarily a problem, but I think starting out with something as unintuitive as you have the fire type feels particularly weird to me. It's not that the game shouldn't have that at all, but I think when you open with it, it feels a little bit alienating because people are going to come in here thinking, oh, this has wingspan art, this is going to be about cute birds. And then we're instantly going into something that's thematically quite unintuitive and silly. And I think you can do that if it's very clearly playing it for laughs, but I don't feel like this is quite anarchic enough to sort of present as being silly deliberately rather than accidentally. I'd also like to be able to play those together. I think being able to play numbers from the different suits together would be interesting, but maybe that's something that you've tried and it didn't work in testing, but... Right, yeah, exactly, a phoenix, that makes sense. And it doesn't have to make sense, but I think whatever you give players as an opener should make sense, right? You should use the more vanilla, intuitive stuff at the start of the game when you're teaching, and then introduce the zanier stuff later on. It's why fantasy games never like start you off with like the Necromancer or something. They start you off with something more vanilla so that you can get your head around the thing and you know what you're getting. Okay, we're going to start clicking on our little followers now. So, what they're doing here structurally is quite interesting, and I think this is worth thinking about, because you can take a game you like with the same sort of basic play structure, and you can structure the meta of it in a different way and end up with a very different game. So it seems like what we've got here are, these are all the activities you normally do on your node map, on your Slay the Spire or Monster Train or Rogue Book or whatever, but they actually occur during a match. So we're doing a flight which is like quite a long battle with the Beekeeper that takes quite a lot of rounds, and that means that instead of doing lots of shorter rounds and then doing these things between them, we're doing them during, which feels interesting. I'm not sure if it will necessarily work, but it does feel like it could be a good differentiator. And if you're around for either of the streams when I was playing Northander Chronicles, that was a good example of this as well. Like the core gameplay was very similar to Rogue Book, which is like Slay the Spy with multiple characters. but they had like a different mana system. And that really changed some of the thinking you needed to do in the moment to moment, even though the actual card play and stuff was very familiar. And those are like little design branches, pathways you should look for. It's like, how can I take the proven gameplay that I know works already and replicate it almost exactly, but then just branch one thing in a way that, and here's the important thing, it's not being different for difference sake, it's testing that difference and seeing how it leads to the player needing to think differently. And in strategy and tactics games and turn-based games, it's all about what's going on in the player's head and what they're thinking, not what they're doing on the screen. So you have to like try things out and then see how that leads to a different decision space for the player and whether they find that interesting to engage with. I like the idea of actually doing deck building in the middle of a match. It takes us back to old school deck builders like Dominion and stuff like that. I don't know if the implementation here is going to work, but I think it's an interesting thing to explore. So we are shuffling a tile into the deck now, and we can freeze an opponent. We can upgrade a random hand tile. I like upgrading my hand. I'm a fan of that. And it means I don't have to learn how a new mechanic works. Gain 3 defense for every opponent seems like it could always be useful. So I'm just going for those ones that seem perennially useful, and then we'll do a defense thing. Okay, shiny coin is going to upgrade a random tile in our hand, and we can play that in a run with the 3 and 4 defend, and we can play it with the 2-4 attacks. So we have to get 3 of the same number and suit, or 3 of the same suit in a run. I've got a lot of damage coming in, so I'm going to use that to finish off this hand of defense cards. So we get our 7 defense from that. And then that's upgraded something else in my hand, so I've got a flame 5 now. That's just going to make it harder to complete flame runs now, because I absolutely need a 4 to be able to play that. So there's something interesting there where the upgrading your cards potentially leads you into a situation where they're harder to play. Which I'm not bringing that up as a problem. I think it might be quite interesting. I like games where becoming more powerful makes the game naturally more difficult for you. Like upgrade systems where as you become upgraded, the tools you get or the abilities you get are harder to use. I find that much more interesting than like a game becoming more difficult because the enemies just get more health or do more damage. When the game gets more difficult because the skills that the player is given are just like harder to wield, I find that a more interesting way of doing difficulty in a skill-based game or a judgment-based game. Something I'm always looking for. You know, like the Balatro Jokers that just massively increase the risk-reward ratio of the game. The mechanics that give you like a much bigger potential damage output but require you to pull off a very specific thing. Those are really interesting to me. Gain 3 defense for every opponent. Okay, we want to trigger that. I'm going to get KO'd again this time. This is just super hard, I think. We're going to play that in a run with these flames. I think part of what's making it not work for me, because I like the slightly manic theming of like the photographic character, the kind of kung fu movie vibes, the mahjong, the different names and stuff. I feel like it's not quite leaning into the kung fu movie thing quite enough. And I think like even these symbols on these cards, if the fire magic was really represented as, it just doesn't feel like the tiles are quite pushing into that mahjong type space enough to give us that kind of corny retro. You know, I'm going to say Orientalism here. I'm going to say that in a neutral way, but usually when we talk about Orientalism, we're talking about like racist pastiche. I think if you want to push it further in that direction, you probably can, and you can get away with it because it's birds. Fearless Pex is doing that, because Fearless Pex is like a pastiche of a character name like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, right? And some of the others, we have that similar vibe. But I think the visual art on the cards and some of the graphic design is not quite there. You know, you've got these bits of splatter, and some of them look like brushstrokes, which fits that aesthetic. And some of them look more like graffiti. Like all of this mess around here looks more like graffiti. And it feels like sometimes it's trying to do this kind of Chinese traditional art thing, but it's just veering a little bit too close towards messy graffiti, which is not that. You know, that's not what we're looking for here. So I think we should look for some references in a minute and see, like, how we would get closer to this. Like, Bernard, Avatar is a good reference point, right? Avatar is a good reference point. And obviously I don't want to, like, conflate Japanese and Chinese things, but how does the Shogun video game series do this kind of stuff? Because we're doing, like, a period reference. And the tiles are a period reference, and the names are a period reference, and the music is a period reference. But then this kind of like graffiti-ish purple and pink thing doesn't fit with that. And I think if you pushed everything a little bit further into the kind of like Chinese magic stuff, or the kind of cheesy 70s, 80s Japanese shows about Chinese history, which is a whole genre, like Monkey, right? Like the original Monkey TV show. Feels like it's in the same kind of creative space as this, but you've got this modern, like, the graffiti stuff down here looks like it's from Splatoon or a skateboarding game or something, and it's not quite hitting for me. Even just changing this purple to be like black and red or something would make this better. I think it's trying to be funny in the wrong places, maybe, because the concept of the game of like birds fighting, and they're using some sort of like magical kung fu stuff like the Way of Fire, and they have names like Relentless Pex. That's inherently funny. You don't then need to like make all of the surrounding art be yellow and pink and stuff to present the game as goofy, because it's already conceptually goofy. And if you make the rest of the game look kind of serious, that will make the joke funnier, rather than doing this thing of like putting bright colors everywhere because it's supposed to be goofy, because that makes the joke feel like you're doing the badum-ch on the joke to try and highlight that it's a joke. I think it would hit a lot harder if you took the aesthetic of the game a little bit more seriously. So just to give you an example of where I think this is done very well in another game with birds, let me just switch borders around. But from a game design point of view, I'm enjoying what we've got here. So I'm saying this with love. But let me just hop over to this other display capture for a second. Did anyone ever play Aviary Attorney? So this was like a kind of almost parody of Ace Attorney, where you play as a bird in it's kind of Victorian France. And this was all made from, who's the illustrator? It's a historical illustrator. This was a Kickstarter project about 10 years ago. And it was I think a boyfriend and girlfriend team. And yeah, J.J. Granville was like a French satirist who did all of these cartoons of animals behaving like people, right? And they were public domain, so these people that liked Ace Attorney, they liked that game format, so they made a game that basically used all of the same structures and mechanics as an Ace Attorney game, but they used all of these historical bits of art. And it's cool because it's really consistent, right? But the thing about this is when you look at the creative direction, and I know this is a totally different type of game, but it's doing some similar things in terms of art direction and creative direction. When you look at the creative direction of this, it's really consistent, and it also takes itself quite seriously. So if you look at this image and you forget what it's of, and you just look at like the choices of lines and the choices of typography and everything, it's like it's taking the subject matter seriously. And the fact that we have this kind of Sherlock Holmes bird and everything. It's funny when you start to really think about it and look at what is being represented, but the overall creative direction is like taking it seriously and treating it with respect, right? Whereas what we're doing with the kind of period setting in Sparrow Warfare is just all over the place. And I think Avatar is actually a really good reference point. Sorry, I don't know who it was who mentioned Avatar in the chat, but I think Avatar is a very good reference point. I think stuff like the original Monkey TV show is a good reference point. Bernard, that's a great way of thinking. Yeah, not serious, but sincere. That's what Monkey is as well. So Monkey, if you've ever seen it, they made a new one, a Netflix one, but the original one, it's a Japanese show, but it's about Chinese folklore. And you look at it and it's like, okay, everything here is kind of, it's sincere. That's the right way of putting it. It's silly. It's not serious. It's tonally silly, but everything is sincere and everything is still like trying to be a period drama, even if it's a bit cartoonish. And I think the thing that doesn't work for Sparrow Warfare at the moment, and again, I'm saying this with love because I quite like what we've experienced of the gameplay so far, is just all of this yellow and pink, that stuff that looks like it's from a graffiti game or looks like it's from Splatoon or looks like it's from like a dance game. You know, this is like the aesthetic I would expect to see in a dance mat game or a game about extreme sports. And it's too messy because traditional like ink art doesn't have those splatters everywhere unless it's done for a very specific stylistic thing. So I think if the developers really, really lent in to making it feel more period accurate in terms of all of that stuff, then it would really start to shine. And the idea of the birds having like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon names and doing fireballs at each other would really start to shine because it's all pushing in the same direction. And I think sometimes when people make something that has a slightly wacky concept, they get tempted to like frame the joke too much with all this colorful goofiness so that people know it's a joke. And that makes it not hit for anyone, right? Whereas if you make the joke feel much more sincere, some people won't get it, and that's fine because they'll just play the game as a serious game. But then the people who jive with that, it will really, really hit for them. Okay, let's try again. Okami is a good reference as well. Yep. Okay, we'll jump out of the tutorial and do a. But yeah, like all of this UI design doesn't really go with the music and the illustration style for me, and I think it's a missed opportunity. And even I think the other place I would look into is like the symbols on the cards. This fire, that's like an emoji fire. It's a casual mobile game icon fire. The background is fine, but the symbol use doesn't feel like it really captures that kind of retro Chinese magic thing. And I'm not an expert on any of these things. There'll be people in the chat that do know this way more of this stuff than I do. But I did grow up in the 80s and 90s with a dad who was a kung fu instructor for about 15 years and grew up with like a much larger exposure to sort of Chinese cinema of the time than a lot of people my age would have had. So I don't know what the Chinese equivalent for a weeb is, but my dad was very much one of those. He used to run a club that taught wushu. He also used to do Chow Gar Praying Mantis. I learnt a bit of wushu from him, but we only really kind of did forms for like body conditioning when I was a teenager. I fell out of love with it later on in life because exercise. But yeah, I grew up with those early, you know, pre-dubbed Jet Li films and stuff like Legend of Feng Sayuk and stuff like that, and I have a lot of love for that stuff, and a lot of it is funny as well. You know, I think if you go back and you watch like the early Jackie Chan films before he was like explicitly a wushu clown, and it was like more, you had this tone where it was presented as a serious kung fu movie, and it was, but the comedic moments were so much stronger because of that. Like the very early Jackie Chan films, like Drunken Master and stuff like that, because wushu is circus kung fu, and it's like clowning and martial arts at the same time. And I think if you could get that tone across in this game, it would be great. Fewer colors, getting the color palette more in line with the time, making it a little bit messy, removing anything that says graffiti game or that says casual mobile game, all of those kind of clashing elements. Gameplay seems like something I could really get into. I like the idea of building the deck in the middle of the match. We're going to go with the freeze mechanic this time, I think. Good day, George. Okay, what can I complete a run with that? So we can do a 2-3-4 with the cold snap in the middle, I think. Yeah, that works. The way the wildcards work is interesting in terms of how it makes you think as you're playing. I think putting jokes in games that no one gets is better than putting in like a joke that everyone knows is a joke but doesn't find funny, you know? I think I have seen some of the Ip Man movies. It's one of those periods of my life where I was like binging them for 5 years and then just stopped. But it also made me very resistant to watching like MCU style Hollywood action movies, because I want to watch people do the real thing. And even if there's wire work and stuff, like that's the spectacle to me, is the fact that you know, the people did their own stunts. And then when I see characters fighting on a screen and it's not real, I just think, well, I may as well be playing a video game at this point. You know, my favorite Marvel action movies are the really silly ones. You know, I like the Taika Waititi ones. I like all the banter and the silliness in a Guardians of the Galaxy or a Thor Ragnarok or whatever, because to me that's giving me the interesting part of comic books, which is the absurdity and the exaggerated characters. Whereas the fighting stuff, I just think I'd rather be playing Mortal Kombat if I'm just going to be looking at a screen with people fighting on it and it's not even real. And part of that, I think, comes from just years of watching lots of martial arts cinema. Yeah, we got a shout out on Tim Kane's channel this week, although I haven't seen it yet because it's on a members only video, but I'm going to be just like finding out what Tim Kane said about the channel, and if it's nice, I'm going to make a t-shirt with it on or something. I like Shang-Chi, yeah. Shang-Chi's fun. I knew that Tim Kane watched the channel because he's popped up in comments before and like just implied that he watches the channel and stuff on comments on over here, and he's responded to my comments on his channel. But yeah, it's the first time he sort of like openly talked about it in a video, which is cool. I mean, I think it would be funny if the birds just full on made like key noises and went "oots" at each other and stuff like that, but it could get annoying very quickly. We failed, but sure, we tried. Yeah, the graphic design overall is fine. Like, I wouldn't necessarily change any of the typography. Like, all of the UI layouts are good. It's just the ink is bordering on messy too much and needs the colors reining in, because it feels like it's going too much for Wingspan, and that's kind of taking us away from the other theme, which I think ties into the thing is that the reason why I'm leaning so hard on the Kung Fu movie thing is that the Kung Fu movie part of the theming is where the birds part of the theming meets the game mechanics, right? So if we've got Way of Fire and we've got fighting birds, then that's the important part of the overall creative direction, is the fact that they're in a Kung Fu movie. Whereas the kind of Wingspan, pastel colors, splatty graffiti thing takes away from that. It doesn't like match up with those things. It doesn't add anything. And I think this is a process you go through with creative direction, you know, like the game I'm currently working on. When we started, there was a lot of influence from like retro RPG rulebooks and like the graphic design of D&D rulebooks, and so that's still in there a little bit, but I've gradually wheeled it back as it's become a less relevant part of the game and signals the wrong things, because your art direction is going to signal to people what the game is about, what the tone of the game is. And if you leave things in just because you had them in earlier, and you don't have moments where you kind of reassess and analyze how the game fits together in its current form versus what you originally intended, and you never throw anything out because you're too kind of wedded to that original set of things you put together, then your game isn't going to be as good as it could be, because you put all of this stuff in, you put 12 things in, and then at some point you need to look at them and go, actually 4 of these things should come out, and then the final thing will actually fit together better. And those things could be anything. They could be game mechanics, they could be aesthetic choices, they could be, you know, content like levels or whatever. But you start by putting too much stuff in, ideally, and this is more of a late career thing. If you're just learning how to do stuff, it's going to be very difficult for you to put too many things in a game, because it just takes you so long to put anything in a game in the first place. But when you're sort of established in your craft and you know how to make things, you put in more than you need to, and you test it, and then you take out some of it, and then hopefully the things you take out were the things that didn't fit with the rest of it anyway. And that's how you judge whether to take them out, is do they kind of make the game better than the sum of its parts, or do they introduce something that doesn't gel with the rest of it? Next flight, clicking on your birds while you have space in your hand for the new wild tiles. Ah, yes, okay, cool, that makes sense. See, this is the sort of stuff that I think if I was playing this on my own and not talking all over it, I might pick up on, but yeah, so now we've got a big empty hand, so we're going to get a new wild tile from this bird. Attack the first opponent for the amount of your defense. That sounds pretty useful, actually. We can't use it right now, so I'm going to discard a bunch of stuff. King Pigeon. Okay, so we're gonna do our defense and then do a beaker. Although actually we can... Yeah, that will give us 4 defense, so we can block the incoming, and then the beaker is going to attack for 4 as well. And I don't want to play 5 defense because it's wasting 1, so playing the beaker as the 2 in the run is better. So I do like the little kind of straights and matches mechanic. It gives you, there's a lot of kind of crunchy thought that goes into making the decisions with that. It's good. I think the run based hand play mechanic thing is really solid. It's going to give me a bop, but I've got enough shield to take it. An egg called Possibility. It's going to transform into a new form if I don't destroy it in 1. So we want to concentrate on direct attacking. I'm not quite sure how the damage gets distributed. Is it all going to go on the first guy? Let's just play 3 attack first. Yeah, so we'll stop the egg from hatching. That's a good start. And then we'll go... We don't want to heal. We probably just want to defend now. And we'll do a 2-3-4 on the flame. I mean, seeing as the devs in the chat, I would be interested to hear if you've thought about having it so you can have a run. Or maybe not a run of different suits, but as a matching, so you can play like a defend, attack, and flame that are all ones at the same time. But I understand how, from like a action stack perspective in the way that the game's architected, that might be hard to do. But it did feel kind of intuitive earlier when I was looking for possibilities in my hand that I might be able to play like 3 3s of different colors and have this like mixed action that I do. Defend for the number of tiles you have in your hand. That seems pretty useful. I think having a wild card that helps you when you don't have any defense. And a 5 defend. Let's take that as well. Okay. And we've got a lot of damage incoming. We're going to block about half of it. I'm going to discard these ones. And then end the turn. Ah, okay. That's cool. I like that idea as well of having it as a way. Because it gives you more to think about. So maybe it's not always mechanics. So having it as one of the ways of the bird. Is it the way of wind? Because it feels, or the way of water? Because it feels like it should be like a, wind or water, because they're like the flexible, the flexibility ones. Okay, so this turn we're going to use our brick wall, which is going to defend for how many tiles we have in hand. So I'll do 2 flames and a brick wall to make 3 3s. We're going to set Papa Hawk on fire, and then we get 10 defense, and that means we need another 18 to defend fully this turn. It seems like a waste to play my heal, but it's the only way I can get these to trigger. So if I do that, I get a 4-5-6. The way that the wild cards work in this is gives you some really interesting stuff to think about. Because like playing that as a 6, but a blue 6, so I got an extra 6 defense, made it worth wasting the healing. Because I was healing when I had full health, and it was not worth doing, but it was worth doing to get the extra 6 shield out of. Thanks, KP. I was just looking back in the chat to see what the question was about. Yeah, please don't submit other people's games. It's so... It happened before and it was so confusing. Turns into a random wild tile in hand when played. Okay. We'll do 3, 4, 5 on the fire. Gesundhog. Persistent. A status tile that stays in hand until the end of the level cannot be discarded. Heal 1 tile. End of turn. Oh, a persistent self-healing tile. Okay. We'll do a 1, 2, 3 on the attacks, and then I think that's all we can do. Who's that? It's Marcin. Hey, Marcin. Streamlabs has given you the unreadable blue color name today, unfortunately. Okay. Attacking for the amount of our defense. So if we do 2, 4 and then use that as a 3, we're going to get 9 total defense, and then we'll deal 9 damage because of the beaker card. I really feel like you've got the... This feels like a deck builder made by people that actually play them, which Sounds like a weird little dig, but the amount of game... When there's popular genres, the amount of games that come through that just don't feel like someone has really played them very much is quite high, I would say. When there's a current hotness genre, like, you know, it will be incrementals now, but it was Bullet Heavens a year ago. And Deck Builders, it has been for like the past couple of years. It's very kind of aspirational genre. And for some people, it's aspirational because they're working on the basis of what they think other people will like, and they're like perceived popularity. And those games tend to be quite poo, because the person making them doesn't understand like the thought process that is behind what the player is actually doing as they play the game. And with a game like this, it feels very much like the person who's made it understands what makes these games fun. And that's the reason I'm saying that, is because there's loads of interesting decision stuff that goes into playing a set of tiles in this game. And it doesn't come from the tiles being particularly complex, right? There's not loads of different rules on them. I mean, that can make a game interesting sometimes, but people tend to think like the complexity of an individual component is what makes the game interesting. And that can be the case, but often it's a sign that someone is not really understanding how those games work when they just like start you off with loads of cards with loads of different things they do and stuff like that. We've got Rooster. Draw 3 tiles of the suit played. Draw a tile for every defense tile in hand. I think draw 3 tiles of the suit played feels like it gives you quite a lot of control. I like the sound of that. Select and draw 2 tiles from your draw pile, Phoenix. I'm not going to go for that because I hate looking through libraries of stuff. I tend to rush that action, so I will usually avoid abilities like that. This tile will attract a slot hog to your hand after being played. Side hustle. Rewards also gift you extra tiles for X turns. Buff Phoenix. Tile is destroyed on playing, resurrects again in the next level. Okay, we'll just go for the buff. Swooperoni. All opponents take 50 damage after X turns. It's literally the Slay the Spire bomb, but I'm fine with having that kind of reference between games. Push the first opposing tile to the back. Fill hand with when this tile is discarded. Persistent. Oh. It says it can't be discarded. So you need a way of discarding it that isn't the normal discard mechanic. I didn't want to pick that. Oh well, I've got it now. Gonna just keep drawing flame tiles. We'll just burn in the beekeeper. Got so many bees. I was gonna discard these, but they're gonna give me a little bit of health back from the Gusund Hog tile. Beekeeper's just beating us up. Disgraceful. It's quite a funny scenario, though. Bird attacking a, like, full-grown armoured human. I'm going to use Beaker to give ourselves some defense and attack for the defense at the same time. I do like that Beaker card. Good luck with your dev, Gnagnar. Bonk me. Hey, we did it. Ascension. These stronger tiles have been added to your deck. Okay, so it just sort of naturally, automatically upgrades the basic stuff in our deck. And that means that we can spend time thinking about the more unique wild tiles and not having to have a trade-off of like, oh, do I get a basic defense or do I get something more interesting, which I think is a good idea as well. The Shrike. Being attacked by a Hosier Song. What does that 3 mean? Is it going to upgrade itself? Burn you with 3. Oh, okay. I mean, I'd prefer you didn't. Oh, I should have used that to trigger the attacks instead. I would have finished them off in one go. Oh well. Ah, so because he's flamed up, it's transferring to the Falconer, the enemy. Right, we're going to have one go at the Falconer, and then I'm going to move on to Realtime Chess. I'm having a good time with this, though. It definitely passes the, you know, would I organically keep playing it type test. Which is a rare privilege. It's not, it's just the law of averages or something. I don't know. Yep. Flames are doing it. Flames are big right now. I do want to see what the other ways are like, but I don't think I'll have time this time. We're going to get healed based on our hand size at the end of turn, but that's going to happen before we get attacked, I think, which is unfortunate. Marjorie, what's your deal? Beautiful Marjorie. What are you doing, Falconer? You're going to do nothing this turn. Shield with a defense of 1. Dreaming. Biding time for 1 more rounds. Attacking reduces the counter. Okay. Let's do that. And... oh, I want to use seeds during a defense because we need to draw more defense tiles, really. That's the main reason I got that seeds card, but we can't do it this turn. Right, I need to start clicking on my friendos. Keep forgetting. Let's get these flame tiles out of hand first. And then we'll do defend seeds. Oh no, do the seeds as a 4. We'll get more that way. And then let's see what we can get. We can get a new tile plus. Oh, so this is from the beekeeper. Should we really have these as separate options, or are they two things that you can do both of them? I don't know. Keep defense at end of turn for X turns. That sounds very helpful. Oh yeah, we get both of them. Okay, back. Destroy the lowest level tiles of the suit played with one shot. That sounds like it might be good for thinning out my attack cards as well. Okay, we're going to keep our defense at the end of our turn, and we're going to play that with... We're going to get 15 defense from playing that set. And we're going to keep it, although we're going to lose it all. I could use that to get rid of the lowest defense cards, but I think defense cards are so useful that I would rather keep my 1 defenses, where there's... The attack cards, I think I want to get rid of the bottom tier of attack cards. Become insatiable. For 3 turns, draw 3 tiles whenever a bird is freed. So freeing is defeating them, I think. Multiply the set or run by 2. That's kind of useful. Yeah, I love that because all of these special abilities are on wild tiles. They give you lots of flexibility for like the turn-to-turn tactical thinking of like, do I apply this to an attack or a defense? And that's kind of cool. It does feel like you're not really building into a build though, because you can just always... It's so flexible that it doesn't feel like you're building in a specific strategic direction, but I'd have to see how that plays out over playing the game for a long period. Shuffle 5 wild tiles from discard pile into draw pile. Why not? Another brick wall, and heal myself and remove burning. I mean, the enemies seem to have started doing burning, so it might be useful to have now. And we're going to do focus, attack, and dilute at the same time. So we're going to get rid of our 1 attacks. It's going to get rid of that. Cool. Okay. And I should have rearranged the order so that turned into a 4, really, shouldn't I? I didn't know whether I needed to do that or if it would automatically pick the higher. Keep it simple. We'll go for go get a big juicy attack and a big juicy defend, so I don't have to think about more rules. Falconer's a skelly man. It says I've got things that trigger for every fire tile in hand, but I'm not really sure what the categorization is. If it's... These all have a orange and brown background. Maybe that's what makes them a fire tile, but it's not super clear. So let's try. Do I have 4 fire tiles in hand? Am I going to draw 4? No, I didn't. So the fire tiles are just the burn attacks, I think. Yeah, it's just these orange tiles. So the purple wild tiles I would generally get on any run, and the orange tiles are the ones that I've got specifically with this bird that I'm playing as. We'll remove our own burn and defend. Got some smoke now. We destroyed at the end of the turn though, okay. Blame. Double it and then attack the first opponent for your defense. So we're going to do 75 to that guy. Oof. And we'll do the same again. So the defense isn't getting consumed by Beaker, so I can play 2 Beakers in a turn and do 75 damage twice, which is neat. Nice to get to busted nice and quickly. Okay, we're going to do some draw stuff to start off with. We get 2 more tiles. 3, 4. Let's draw some more fire tiles if we can. And then we'll do more burning and get an extra bit of defense from how many tiles we have in our hand. Getting shield up to silly numbers this time. We got an abandoned egg. Okay, we want to clear our hand a little bit before I start playing those. So let's get rid of these low-level flame cards. And we'll do 3, 4, 5 on the defense. And then see what we've got here. Discard 2 random tiles, draw 3 tiles. Okay, that could be helpful. Wrong clogging our hand. Freeze all opponents for a turn. What are you doing? What's 31? Remove any burning and heal for 31. I would like to freeze you because I don't want you to be able to heal yourself. So let's do that. We're going to burn you. We're going to discard 2 random tiles, and we're going to freeze you as well, so that you can't heal yourself. Think we're going to do it? Think we're going to do it? Right, we want to use brick wall while we've got lots in hand, although it doesn't really make much difference because we have so much shield at the moment. But let's try and clear our hand out a little bit so we can get our new tiles from these guys. I could see the game being way slower with other builds as well, because the fire damage is adding up to so much extra kind of damage efficiency, I guess, that I could see the game being really slow with the other types of decks, given how long these matches are. Draw a tile for each follower. I use that now while it's useful. That's an interesting mechanic, like deliberately saving the followers because they play into, you know, building up a card's ability. And we do 2, 3, 4 here. Okay, we've got a heal. So we'll do a heal and 2 defends. This might let us live one more round. Oof. This is getting very close. Okay. One little bit more shield. Oh. That was so close. I'm not going to play the jungle round just because I need to move on to the other games that have been scheduled. This is great though. I think, you know, so much of my feedback was kind of cosmetic stuff. I think people that play this and like this sort of game are going to like it based on what it already is. It's definitely an adjustment to go to this kind of game structure where you're just, you know, playing fewer matches, but they're much longer. And I think the fact that you build the deck during the match really, really helps with that, because the thing that makes deck builders run is that you're modifying the deck quite frequently and you're cycling through the deck quite frequently. So the joy of a deck builder usually is getting to feel that change over time as your deck changes and you cycle through it so much. So normally if someone said, well, I'm going to make a deck builder, but instead of having like, you know, you play for an hour and a half and you do a run, and in that run you do like 20 battles, instead you do 6, I would think, well, that sounds a bit worrying, because like, how often do I get to build my deck? But you've put that in as a kind of interstitial mechanic within the different matches, and that works really well, because a deck builder but with fewer combats and they're much longer, to me that feels like a type of pitch where it's like, well, you kind of, that breaks the recipe for what makes a deck builder work, because it's the constant modification and running the deck and, you know, emptying out your hand and filling it up again that allows you to feel the deck building. But putting it in the middle of the combat is a really interesting choice. I think it works very, very well here. The theme of it being like, you know, the characters you defeat are hovering there as your followers, and then you use them to get your new tiles. It all works and makes sense. I just think, yeah, getting the aesthetics a little bit tighter and a little bit more focused would really, really help this thing. You know, almost going sort of Shogun Showdown direction with the martial arts movie vibes of it. Going to go back to, need to change my display type. Right, we're going to check out Realtime Chess next, which is one of those concepts that always feels a little bit cursed. Realtime Chess roguelike, not the most exciting title. And I think it's kind of like when you see jam entries and they are some sort of novelty thing based around gravity. There's just like, it's one of those ideas where you could execute the idea well. You probably can do chess variants or real-time chess variants in a good way. But often the idea is not very inspired in its own right, and that makes you not have like loads of kind of faith in it. But let's see how this is kind of implemented. And it's not an uninteresting concept to do variations on chess. I'm fine with that. But I just tend to find that they often come from a place of like not being very inventive in the first place. So I just put these on the board wherever I want to start off with. Okay, and then it says ready. UX so far seems pretty good. Okay, we can... Oh, it's literally like a real-time strategy game. You can just... Ah, okay. I see how it works. I think the visual communication might be the wrong way around. So I think what happens is they get the little symbol around them after they've moved. So it's similar to the... If you've ever played like a 4X game like Civ online and you have the simultaneous movement mode where everyone can move at the same time, but you can't end the round until everything is moved. I think that's how this is set up. But if that's the case, I would be highlighting the ones you haven't moved yet rather than the ones you've already moved. So let's... So I'm going to put my pawns in front and put my king back here. I don't think we'll be checking this one out for long. I like the marble effect on them. It's kind of neat. I don't want to move that there. I'll leave that there. Do I have to move everyone? I'm not sure I can think properly for this. I can come around the back there. Yeah, I'm not sure that the Viscom for like what's finished its turn and what has yet to go is the right way round for me. I feel like we should be highlighting the opportunities, right? So you highlight the thing that hasn't moved yet, because that's where the opportunity is. You highlight the thing that's already moved, it's like you're drawing my attention to the wrong thing, because I don't care about what's already moved. I can queen them. That's cool. I think we've had a few chess games that have worked, but I'm finding it a little bit hard to think about it in real time. Okay, so this is our node map. This is our... I was joking with someone on Blue Sky the other day that the... Oh no, okay, this is upgrading our set of things. Okay. So these are... We can get new pieces, right? And this is how many... This is the currency that we've got. So we can't afford anything. We can get new pieces. We've got 2. We can get 2 more pawns. Or we can give a rook an upgrade to go diagonally as well. I think that's what that's saying. I'm going to get that and upgrade the rook. I think that's what just happened. It's a cool concept. I'm not sure whether we need this part and the real-time part at the same time. I think the real-time part I'm not getting on well with. I like the idea behind the structure of the upgrade kind of part of the game. Oh yeah, I think you're right, it is a cooldown timer because it's got a radial. I think they need to be like... I think when the piece can't be moved... Oh! I dodged. Don't know if that's supposed to be possible. It felt weird. I think when the piece can't be moved, if you just like made them sort of 75% opaque so they looked ghosted or something like that, you might work a little bit better. It's one of those things where it maybe needs like 2 signifiers rather than just the interface thing. Yeah, the ending time is sort of occluded based on where the clock ends, isn't it? Yeah, so it doesn't have tutorial text at this moment. I would say that you want to check the idea. When you've got like quite a novel game idea, I don't think you want to put tutorial in until you've really tested what people like about the idea a fair bit. Because if you put too much tutorial in the game, it starts to make the game look like you're trying to present it as a finished idea. And your tutorial design should be based on like watching your playtesters and seeing what they need help with. And I think this is a project which is still at the stage of doing that, so I wouldn't put an explicit tutorial in it for a while. The thing is, because the visual communication stuff is feels a little bit off, it's hard for me to know whether I'm... Yeah. Oh. Why can't my rook go? My rook can't go in the ways a rook should go. What's happening? It's hard for me to tell if the core mechanics work or not for me, because the information layer of understanding when my units are ready and stuff feels a little bit out of whack because of the way the VFX are being used. Ah, there's a hole. I got a hole in the board, yeah. So the holes in the board don't stand out much because they're too close to the main grey. So I think the background should be a little bit darker. I think the countdown clock is okay. I think what someone said about having it end in a different place is a good idea because it ends behind the tower, which makes it feel a little bit ambiguous. But the thing that I really want is a little bit more distinction between when a piece is dormant and cannot be moved, and when it's ready to be moved, and when it's being selected. And because you've already got this marble texture, if there's a way of making that glow for your units based on their state, that would be a really good use of that marble texture. You know, so there's like a version when they're there's a version when the units look more like they're asleep and they're grayed out a little bit. And then when they're ready to go, they're kind of lightly glowing. And then when you click on them and that's your selected one, it's kind of glowing even more. I think that would do a lot. I think also maybe having a different color VFX for your stuff and their stuff would make a lot of sense as well. Like use orange for the aggressive enemy color and then use blue for the player or something. What does that do? Shield, sunrise, pawn. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to get it. And then we're going to get some more pawns, because I think I just upgraded pawns, so it makes sense to buy more. Ah, look, he's got a shield. What does that do? Yeah, we're going to need some tooltips in a full game version of this, but... I think the overall aesthetic of this works. I think it's better than sort of trying to add too much of a story or anything to chess, because that could be a really kind of... that could end up feeling quite clumsy. I like the concept of how the progression works, and you're sort of buying more pieces for your set and upgrading what some of the pieces do. I did think when I got that upgrade it was going to apply to all pieces of that type, which might be a little bit more interesting from an engine building perspective. A thing that I feel might be like a cursed problem with the main idea is just the losing your king to lose is such a split-second thing, and roguelikes don't usually run very well off of like split-second insta-death things. They're usually much more based on, you know, you have made a series of errors, and now when you lose the game, you feel like it was your fault because of all of those little cumulative errors you made leading up to that moment. And I think the structure of this isn't really allowing for that very well. Like, you just sort of... I mean, that's what's happening here, right? I've hidden my king in the corner, and now everyone's going to gradually chase him around and beat him up. But this is why, you know, something like Slay the Spire is like... It's all about how much chip damage do you take in a turn. And then it's very rare that you'll actually meet an enemy that can kill you in 2 or 3 turns, but when they do, it's to counter a particular build in your deck or whatever. Whereas having like a single unit on the board that can end the game if it gets killed is very, very harsh for a game with this kind of structure, because it's intended to, you know, you sit down and you play the whole game in the course of an hour or 2 hours. I think that's how most people play run-based games anyway. And if that game requires you to make quite a lot of investment in thinking about your upgrades and developing your strategy, then having it all end in one mess up is going to feel really harsh for people. So I think that's something you would need to think about. And it's not a problem that this game specifically has. I think it's a problem that comes with the idea. It's like bundled with the idea of using chess in this way. I think there's maybe a very easy solve for it though, actually, is to think of what auto battlers do, which is basically when you win or lose a round in an auto battler, you're winning or losing health rather than you just immediately lose, right? I think that might be better. You have like a health resource that is taken away when your king dies rather than just ending the run. Because although the chess rules make it intuitive that losing the king is losing the game, it's just a little bit too high stakes, I think. Okay, horsey there. I think the shield just means they can take an extra hit or whatever. Oh, I messed it up already. Trying to think knight moves in real time is just really hurting my brain. Oh, the dodges feel good when you manage to pull them off. I think the thing that makes it feel strange initially is you're basically playing micro in an RTS, right? But we're used to tiles meaning turn-based. Hey, Hakwin, thanks for joining. Am I gonna get time? Am I gonna get in there in time? Where are you going? You better go there. Go there. Ah. Okay. My knight can... yeah. Foolish. AI is not very good. It just walked directly into the path of a ready character. But I still had to spot the opportunity, which is fine, because it being real time means that the windows of those opportunities aren't like as long as you want them to be. Which is why one of the reasons why we have chess clocks as well, isn't it? Because if you have really good chess players and you don't give them a chess clock, they'll just be sitting there working like 12 moves ahead or something like that. That's something to do with the queen? Shield, death, queen. Don't know what that means. I think getting more rooks is a good idea because I don't find it hard to think ahead with them, whereas with the movement of the knight, thinking ahead with the knight movement in real time is just hurting my brain. I can't believe I did that. I set the game up so they just had a straight run. I wasn't even thinking about their side of the board. I was just thinking about like the relative positioning of all my defense, and they just went boop. I didn't even see where they came from. I thought that it looked like the rook was just like falling down out of the sky onto my king. What a wonderful moment of mechanical slapstick. I like this. But I'm not gonna like. I've only been playing it 10 minutes. I'm not gonna like repeat everything I just said. I think there's something nice about the aesthetic. I think you need to reckon a little bit with the harshness of having a run-based game where you can just lose from losing one piece very, very quickly like that, I think that might be a little bit too harsh. Because if you did have like 3 lives or something you had to maintain through the run, then it adds another thing to the shop, right? So you could have a very expensive extra life you can buy, and then that it kind of has more trade-offs for the sort of deck buildy, engine buildy type bit of how do you get your health back. But I kind of like this. I think there's lots of little VFX and communication things you need to do to make the core gameplay work, which we've talked about all of them and we've given suggestions already. And then just the holes need to be more obvious because it's 3 shades of grey and they're not as different from each other as they could be. I think maybe having a slightly more, you know, this kind of VFX that's in the background could go all the way across so we can see like a sort of very slightly moving nebula or lava or whatever through this hole. It's going to make that easier to see, but they did kind of block me early on. And yeah, don't build a tutorial until you've really validated this idea and people were really having fun with it and seem to want to play it loads. Because I kind of like what I experienced here, but I'm not getting like I want to sit here and play it for a long time type vibes from it. And I honestly think the real-time aspect is an interesting experiment, but I think it's kind of feels like a gimmick at the moment, whereas the playing chess and gradually upgrading your pieces feels like that's the perhaps less exciting concept, but it's the bit that I was drawn to and enjoyed doing, was thinking about like how am I going to change my set. And then, yeah, you need a good name because this is not a good name. I think these really dry names that just describe what the game is only work when it's a long one. You know, like a game about feeding a black hole is a good title because it's so long that the title format starts to feel like a joke. Whereas Real-Time Chess Roguelike, that's just a project file name for your hard drive, you know. If it was called chess, but in real time, and also it's a roguelike, then that starts to feel like a funny little hook. It's got character. Whereas this is just the name of the... It's just a description of what it is. And yeah, I'm not sure if the real time actually pays off that much. I would have to play a version of it where all of the VFX and the graphic design of the real-time part worked better to really be able to judge it. And then the last thing, we're going to check out Cat Solitaire, which I don't know how much this deviates from just being a regular solitaire game. Yeah, we've got effect cards and stuff. Okay, so we're doing some sort of basic solitaire stuff, but there's some other bits to this game. I put it on the end of the stream because I felt like this was going to be the least innovative thing, which I don't mean in a critical way, just that this is probably going to require the less thinking of the 3 games that we're looking at today. The long title joke, yeah. I love the fact that chess YouTubers are a thing now. I'm not a big chess guy, but I sort of... I'm glad it's a thing. Cards go in slots. Stack cards on matching suits 1 number away or higher. So let me just See if I can fix this windowing. Yeah, that's better. Okay, it's teaching us how to play solitaire. And ace is high or low, which I forget because I haven't played solitaire for a very long time. I love the little VFX of the cards. This is a dock. Dock every card to win. Start by docking the ace. At last, my own spaceship. And it only took me 17 months to assemble, using these convenient picture book instructions. If you have text like that that types out, please top align it. Do not have the text start to read out and then move the line up. It's really annoying because if someone is already reading it, you've moved it. And the word they were already reading has moved away from their eye. If you're going to have type out text, it needs to be top aligned. Really minor UX thing, but it could be very annoying if you don't fix that. Let's see if this thing actually flies. Launch. This is a very cute planet. This is a... Where are you going? Where are you going? Going past the Scallops van. The stinky Space Scallops van. Space Cat Solitaire. Has anyone played Forbidden Solitaire? I think I followed the dev on Blue Sky. Yeah, there must be like a real kind of vacuum seal around those ear holes. And also, there's nothing to hear out there. There's nothing to hear in space. Can't believe I'm finally in space. What should I do first? Should I seek out new life? Should I trade spices? Should I see how many parsecs are in the Tassel Run? Yeah, the cat is wonderful. I'm not sure I would have gone for a white cat in a white suit, though. I think there should be some contrast there. But maybe it's going to give us ways to give them different colour suits or something, and they've used white as the vanilla. Hello? Now, hold it right there, partner. If you think you can just fly that tin can all willy-nilly around these parts, you've got a real surprise coming. Oh dear, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I don't know why the cute white cat is Matt Berry coded, but someone always is when I'm doing voices, I'm sorry. Easy, partner, I'm not gonna report you. You seem new around here. How about I show you the ropes? Why we're doing dialogue choices in a solitaire game? Okay, I will do your tutorial. The name's Cassidy, Butch Cassidy. Hop in my ship and I'll take you for a little gallop. Wow, space is just as beautiful as I imagined. But what's all this stuff floating around? Mighty fine question out here in the colonies. There's all manner of detritus cluttering up our starry skies. You might say it's part of the charm of living off the trail. In these parts, it's the pilot's job to dispose of all space junk in their immediate vicinity. According to local ordinance, of course. Our governess is a bit tight-laced, you might say. She insists we load up this debris in numerical order, from smallest to biggest, but sometimes we gotta reorganize it first. Looky here now, our first batch of cards, and do you see them aces? Most of them already docked and all nice and tidy. Okay, it's fully gonna just teach us how to play basic solitaire. That's fine. I mean, I guess it needs to have that, because some people, exactly like Shivansh in the chat, will not have played solitaire before, which is fine. So we do a 4 over to that 5. No? 1 at a time, and from the end of the stack. Ah! I've broken it already! How do I put it back? I think I've broken it already, Space Cat Solitaire. Because it won't let me put this 4 anywhere, and I also can't take it out of my hand. Are we really doing this? Are we getting a bug this bad in the tutorial in a game this polished? Is that happening today? This is the... We're gonna get a bug like that in the tutorial. This game is incredibly polished. It's a good job they didn't pay me anything, isn't it? Imagine using your consultancy time up with bugs. Okay, put that 3 on that 4. They have to be the same suit as well. Is that what's going on? Okay. Put that 4 on that 5. So for anyone that hasn't played Basic Solitaire before, you're trying to make stacks with the highest number at the top and the lowest number at the bottom, and you have to constantly move the cards around, and you can move them in a whole stack, but you can... Oh, I can't pick that one up. I can't move them from the king. Maybe it's because there's nowhere to go. So that 2 I can take and put on that 3, but they have to also be the same suit, it looks like. I think this just doesn't work the way that I expect Solitaire to work. I think that's how I broke it before. Because I would expect to be able to pick it up from that 8 and move it over to that 9, but maybe there are just lots of different variants of Solitaire and my brain is fixed to a particular one, so I'm struggling to understand how this one works. One at a time. That's just no fun. But it's been so long since I played a normal Solitaire game anyway. Okay, so we've got 2 kings up there that are in suits we don't have, which is interesting. So I can't put these guys up there. So we can temporarily put a card over there, though. There is a variant with just 1 card move. It has more fail states, however. That's interesting, kind of. I wonder if they've deliberately used that variant so that they can make people lose the game more frequently. Perhaps because they're evil, or for some similar reason. So if I put that 7 there, I can lock the 7 in place. I can move the 8 over and then bring the 7 back down. And then that frees up the king to go up there. No. I thought... Oh, why are these guys up here when we don't have that suit in play? Okay. That 7 to there. When are you going to send me the Dragos game? Have you got a tabletop simulator version of that, KP? I feel like we should try and encourage people on the Discord to start building tabletop simulator games. I think it would be a very good way to get people prototyping these like card-based video games before they build them. I don't know if you've spoken to Boss Grand, who made Fame and Folly, but he built that in Tabletop Simulator before he programmed it. Are the void cards wild? That would make sense because they don't have a suit on, so maybe we can put them where we want. This is upside down. How disgraceful. I can't get my king out of jail. I mean, so we did jump straight into the main game and skip the tutorial, and that was because the tutorial crashed. Or the tutorial got locked in some way. I wasn't able to get out of. I don't think I can go from here. I could put that 10 on that jack. Okay, the void suit is its own suit, apparently. But I can't put the 10 on the jack. I also see jacks and kings and no queens, which is confusing. Oh no, I can see a queen there. Oh, we can put a card up there as well. Yeah, there's too much confusing UX stuff here. It's like I can temporarily store cards up the top, but for some reason I can do this one over the kings, even though there's no indicator there that should be able to happen. So I think there's a lot of... They spent a lot of time polishing this UI, but a lot of the functionality of it hasn't really been like QA tested. Like, and that's bad because a game that's looks at this level of polish should have been QA tested, not necessarily by external QA, but when I say QA testing, I mean, you know, you're deliberately playing it in the wrong way in order to see what happens with someone who doesn't understand the game plays it. Although no, look, they've docked a card up the top, so you are supposed to have spaces up here to put stuff. Right, we're gonna try and replay the tutorial because I'm not giving it a fair crack otherwise. Cosmic Cradle tutorial. Okay, status go for launch. Wow, space is just as beautiful as I imagined, but what's all this stuff floating around? Blah, 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 howdy doody, blah, 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 in these parts, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay. Ace is blocked there. Remember the 2 rules about how cards move. 1 at a time and from the end of the stack. Okay, so this is where I got stuck before. So we can move the 3 over to there. Get stuck in my hand and it won't go anywhere. The tutorial is broken. It's just broken. Why have you done this to me? Why have you done this to me and all of the people on Steam? Why are you not dog fooding your game? It's only got 1 review at the moment. I mean, I can't even really kind of comment on the onboarding because there's just a terrible interaction bug here. I really like this VFX. I don't think it needs to be quite as strong for just like the basic picking up and carrying of something. And I kind of like the sort of metaphor that it's doing, that it's like being zoomed around like a rocket ship, but it kind of looks like a liquid leaking out of the card. It feels more like it needs to come from the border of the card and not to be quite so extreme, because when you want to use that VFX to click something into place or to suggest a celebration, now it's going to be weakened because you're using it so heavily for just moving something around. You do need to click to place a card, but when I click to place it, which it should be able to go there, right, on the 5, it just doesn't. And it doesn't matter which card I select, it gets broken on all of them. Okay, at least there's a retry button up there. It's not obvious that that's the retry button, but it is. Okay, so I pick the 3 up and put it on the 4. Doesn't go, won't go up there, won't go anywhere. Dog fooding is just like a derogatory term for playing your own game. It means like eating your own dog food. Gets used a lot in games teams that make types of games they don't actually like. Gotta eat your own dog food. Yeah, we don't really have dog food in dog fooding in indie development because presumably everyone's making games they actually like. Is it because the game is windowed? Interesting theory. Yeah, no, it's just straight up broken. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that then because it's just too broken. Tomorrow I'm going to be back doing some games from the Game Jam. I did a few on the Discord yesterday. I went through some games and played some of them and left some feedback. And I only went through the Game Jam games which hadn't had anyone play them or had way few players, and they were mostly the games that had like you had to download it. So tomorrow I'll start streaming some of the browser-based games because they're easier to play in a stream because you're not installing stuff and everything. I think next time we run a jam, I will probably make it so you have to have a browser-based version because people that are less experienced with game jams just think they don't need one, and then they don't add one, and then they don't get any votes, and then it's kind of like they've done the same amount of work as everyone else, but they don't get as much feedback, and I don't think that's fair. So I think maybe making sure that's part of the rules. But there's lots of stuff I've seen so far that I'm interested to see. That's not the actual the submission feed for the jam though. I swear I stopped people updating the game and they're still updating them. Maybe 11 hours ago is when I did it. I'm not sure. I locked updates a couple of days after the deadline. So yeah, I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to probably start that stream earlier. I'm going to start that stream at 9 so we can get more done. But my intention is to go through the submissions starting with the ones with the fewest ratings. And I'll be playing them on stream, and then I'll be rating them on a separate window, so people won't see my ratings for the games, but you'll see them on the stream. Yeah. I mean, I haven't made web builds for anything since Flash days. But yeah, I think it's just really important. People are very, very wary of viruses, and if people have the choice of like 10 games and 5 of them just open in the browser and they can play them very quickly and focus on giving feedback, they're going to choose those over the ones that they can't do that with. So it just becomes a point of unfairness in terms of the way that the thing is judged, especially when you have prizes and stuff like that. Connor, there will be more jams. The one I'm looking forward to maybe entering, I don't know if I'll have time, but I really like the look of Juniper's jam that I think is happening in June. It looks like it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks long. It's going to be another long one. They haven't released the theme yet, but yeah, I don't know. I really like Juniper's channel. Out of all of the game dev stuff on YouTube, I think it's playful, which a lot of game dev stuff on YouTube is not, and I think that's a problem. I think it's totally fine being serious business coding guy if you're on a team and that's your job. I don't think being serious business coding guy is a good orientation to making games if you're trying to do it on your own. Because you just make things that don't appeal to anyone because you just take it all too seriously, I think. And I think that's why I'm a bit silly, and that's why I prefer channels about games and game development that are a bit silly and don't treat it like some kind of science, because it is in some ways, but I think the people that want it to entirely be a science are often sort of using that to prop up some kind of insecurity or like fear of uncertainty that they have about, the process of taking risks and making things. And they're like, well, I've got a 70% better chance of commercial success if I pick this genre over this genre. And it's just like, that's not why people buy games. I don't know. So what are the most rated games? Robobobobin. It is a very, very serious game dev channel. Intergalactic Rocket Ball. Robobin. Robobin knew that their game was in the top, and they were just like, I want to see my game. Scroll down to the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom. Cheeky. But yeah, I will probably move tomorrow's stream to like 9 GMT so I can start a bit earlier so I can get through more of these, I think. I'm definitely going to play and rate all of the games. I don't know if I will stream 100% of them. I didn't stream the download ones because I didn't want to just have my computer breaking on a stream. Thanks, folks. I'll see you all soon. And remember, watch out for Kung Fu birds that Hadouken you.